And I thought it would be a beautiful location to talk about these new Trek electric bikes. This is the Lift Lowstep, and you can see that the tubing is a little bit lower, a bit more approachable. That's 19-inch standover height. So for people who maybe are more petite or you're wearing a skirt or something, rather than having to swing your leg up and over the back or really lift it up high, you can just easily hop over and stand comfortably. It's got these nice swept back handlebars, ergonomic grips. The whole thing is set up to be comfortable and really fit your body type and your ride style. There's even an adjustable angle stem right here. This is a quill stem, so it can be raised or lowered and adjusted front and back. And you can get help with that at your Trek dealer. Trek's one of the big three, so there's Trek, Giant, and Specialized in the US. They've got a lot of resources, and so they were able to make these bikes in a couple of different colors. We're seeing the orange and blue, and go Broncos. That's the setup. I'm actually here with Stephanie Jones. She's a Trek rep, and she brought a bunch of bikes out today for me to test ride. We've got the blue, bright blue, and gunmetal gray in the high step, or this nice glossy orange and white in the step-thru. And this is a perfect bike, kind of like his and hers setup. But given that the step-thru does come in white, I mean, if you're a guy and you just prefer that approachability, there's would totally feel comfortable, kind of a unisex color there. So the high step, the frame's going to be a little bit stiffer, and it comes in 3 sizes, so small, medium, and large versus just small, medium. And I do have the actual sort of measurements. I mentioned standover height earlier, 19 inches there versus 30 inches here. So that, 30 inches, it's a big step up. And I was a bit bummed out that Trek didn't take advantage of this nice open triangle section of the frame to add some bottle cage bosses, some provisions for adding maybe a folding lock, a mini pump, or a standard water bottle adapter there. Thankfully, both bikes do have, there's this hole here and here, along with some threaded eyelets on the side of the fork and on the side of the seat stays, and 2 down at the dropout. Those could be used for adding fenders and adding a rear rack. And that's really nice to do if you're someone who maybe you want to use this for a day trip and bring along a jacket or, some extra supplies. It's a little bit more comfortable than wearing a backpack like I'm doing right now. So I think about that a lot. And it's just great that Trek set it up. It's designed to handle that. These are all aluminum frames, including the forks, a little bit more rigid. But again, the comfort is somewhat addressed with this bigger saddle. It doesn't have bumpers or springs or anything, but you do have the adjustable angle and the swept back bars and these ergo grips. I actually really like these ones. These are from Bone Trogger. These are the satellite. They're locking, so they're not going to twist if you overdo it. These would actually be pretty good for rental bikes, in my opinion, because they just seem tough, approachable. You kind of get it. And the drive system, the Shimano Steps, is really smooth, quiet. It doesn't overwhelm you. This is pedal assist only. There's no throttle or anything. And these bikes, they make me think of kind of like the cruiser style, like a beach cruiser look. But I love the way that the battery's put on the down tube, and it's got a mid-drive motor, because that's going to help it stay more stable and just balanced. You want the weight low in center, ideally. And then you've got these larger Bone Trogger tires, 26 by 2.0. So Trek, they do have the Nico and the Dual Sport, which you might be like, well, what's the difference between those electric bikes and these ones? Well, this is just a little bit more upright, relaxed, adjustable, and the smaller wheels, 26 versus 28 on those other models, that brings the whole bike down closer to the ground. These smaller diameter rims tend to be sturdier. You can see that we've got a nice spoke pattern here with reinforcement eyelets too. So these are double-walled aluminum alloy rims, reinforced, just sturdy. And I'm not sure on the maximum rider weight of these. I want to say 300 plus pounds, because that's what I've seen on similar bikes. Trek has, great support, and someone could chime in here in the comments if you have any feedback. This is just my guess, but you tend to be able to handle a little bit more weight with those smaller diameter wheels, and with a rigid frame like this, it's not going to be flexing as much, especially the diamond frame. That's really sturdy. Even the seat post here, this is 31.6 millimeters versus a standard seat post is like 27.2. So it's fatter, it's thicker. And this is one of the areas you could use to upgrade and improve the comfort of this bike. You get yourself a seat post suspension from Thudbuster, Body Float, Suntour, NCX. These are all companies that make premium seat post suspensions, and it kind of cushions you as you're going over bumps. Along with those tires, I was trying to find the PSI rating here. Again, 26 by 2.0, so the 2.0 is the width. And then it says hard case ultimate, so these might have some puncture protection. And then there we go, inflate to 35 to 65 psi. I mean, 35 to 65, like, that's a pretty big range. So if you took it down, you're not going to roll as efficiently. The tires are going to squish though, and they're going to provide a little bit more comfort. So between the tires, the grips, the adjustable angle stem, swept back bars, and a suspension seat post, you'd be good. But keep an eye on that, because the suspension posts add like about 3 or more inches. So you wouldn't be able to get this low step saddle any lower than this. And some people, you'll notice how you see the angle, that seat tube, it really brings the saddle backwards. The reason they do that is because you could stand up right here, and then you could pick your feet up and put them forward and pedal. And Trek actually owns Electra, and Electra has a patent for this like flat foot, feet forward design. And the idea is for people who are maybe a little less stable or less secure with themselves riding an electric bike or a regular bike, it's nice to be able to stand over the saddle at a stoplight or whatever and feel like you have full control of the bike, but you still want to get good leg extension. So that's what this geometry is all about right here. There's actually a lot of thought that goes into it. And the battery pack is also really nicely designed. This is the Shimano Steps battery, and if we unlock it and then slide it, see how it slides out from the side? Many other electric bike batteries, like from Bosch, they kind of go up like this. But when you do that, you have to have space between the battery mount and the top tube. So this design is actually perfect for lowering that standover height, giving you more clearance over the frame. So here's the battery. This is what it looks like when it's off the bike, 36 volt, 11.6 amp hours. That's pretty good. I'd say this is above average in terms of capacity. And I like that it's got that little handle portion so you don't drop it. You can imagine using this to ride to your friend's house or maybe even commute to work, park the bike in the garage, take this battery in and charge it at your desk. It's perfect for that. And then there's a power plug design here on the bottom and another one right here, and they're different, which means in order to charge the bike with the battery on, you use the standard plug. But if you want to charge the battery separately, you need this adapter. And unfortunately, in my opinion, the adapter is just a little bit easy to lose. It doesn't come with like a leash or anything to keep track of it. So it's kind of like when you're at the gas station, you take your gas cap off, you set it down, and you forget it. Well, then you lost your gas cap. So just keep an eye on that dongle that I'm talking about here if you're someone who does charge off the bike and then on the bike sometimes. So I'm going to click it on. You hear that? Very nice. Keys do not have to be left in when riding, but I don't want to forget them this time, so I'm going to plug that in. You might hear a little rattling. Apologize for that. And then here's the display panel. Really small. It does adjust, so you can kind of swivel it forward and back, and it does remove as well. So back to that scenario of you're parking in a public place. You might want to take the battery with you because it's precious, it's expensive. You might want to take the display so someone doesn't swipe that. And that's easy. A lot of other electric bikes don't let you remove the display. And for me, that's I'm always surprised. One downside of this whole setup here, I mean, you can see there's a few more cables going on. Part of it's because of this button pad over here, the Shimano Steps controller pad. And then we've got this extra wire from the display. It's a bit messy up front, but then they try to route some of those cables internally, and then they leave the hydraulic disc brake line external so it's easier to service. 160 millimeter rotors, front and rear. That's good for city riding, neighborhood riding. Kickstand, not adjustable length. That's why I've got a rock here so that the bike would stand up straight and look nice for the photos that I take. Quick release front and rear, which is nice for maintenance, or if you're someone who wants to, store this in a limited space environment, maybe in your garage or toss it in the back of your car, you can get those off pretty easily. Standard 9 millimeter skewers there. 10-speed drivetrain. This is a real superstar. So, a lot of electric bikes that are cruisers and stuff, they tend to have lower end components just because they're trying to keep them cheap. This bike's a little more expensive at $27.99, but you get an excellent 2-year comprehensive warranty plus lifetime on the frame, and you got all those Trek dealers that can help you out all around the country. You can see these horizontal dropouts, so you can actually slide the derailleur hanger and tighten things up. That's something the shop could do. We've got those 10 sprockets, and it looks like 10 to 32 teeth. So it's a little bit more of a relaxed range right there. I'd say excellent for the type of riding that you want to do with this, especially because the top assisted speed is 20 miles per hour. And then it's got this Shimano Dior derailleur with Shadow Plus. So that's that gray, see that thing right there, that lever? when you put it in the up position, like that, on, it tightens the chain so it doesn't bounce around as much, which is really great when you tend to ride faster or maybe you're on bumpier terrain. They've even got a slap guard here, along with the cabling for shifting, which, I mean, I guess that cabling could take some hits, but it's just the chain bouncing, and ideally it just keeps your chain from nicking up the frame, and I think it does a good job. And again, look at the reinforcements here. So it's got extra tubing to create some stiffness and strength at the rear of the bike, and there's even another provision here for a center kickstand. But I like that Trek went with a rear kickstand because it stays out of the way if you need to move these crank arms for any reason, like that. And a lot of times when you back up a bike, see how it forces those cranks backwards? A lot of times you park your bike in your garage and you back it out to go ride, and the kickstand will collide with the crank arms, and that's just a bummer, and you got to lift the bike up. 170 millimeter crank arm length, standard Welgo cage style platform pedals. There's another shot of the motor. 250 watt nominal, up to 500 watt peak, 50 newton meters of torque. It's not the highest torque mid-drive, but I think it's very efficient. It's relatively quiet. It works great for this type of application. Measures your rear wheel speed, pedal cadence, and pedal torque, so it feels smooth. It's the kind of bike, like, if you're just pedaling gently, the motor responds in kind, so it's not going to be like and take off on you and throw you off or anything. You know, this is one of the most approachable mid-drives that I've seen, and I actually really like it. One of my complaints, however, in addition to that whole dongle situation where you need a different plug to charge the battery when it's off the bike, is that you have to power the battery on separately. Okay, so see, we turned the bike on here. There weren't any buttons up here to do it. Shimano has another display that's a little bit nicer, more expensive, and you can see that on the Nico and the Dual Sport that I was talking about before. The display's taller, it's a little bit easier to read, and it has like a power button and a lights button. This one, it's an old display. It's just kind of basic, and I don't know if it's transflective. It's a little harder to read in the daylight, so I don't know if I can make this easier for you. Hopefully you can see that all right. We've got speed, miles per hour, battery capacity, and these are just ticks, so it's showing 3 out of 5 ticks right now. Not as precise. The other display shows battery percentage, and then down here it's got some other readouts. And if you press the black button, we can cycle through those readouts. So we go from time to average speed to max speed, distance, odometer, range. Range is so cool because as you press up or down through the 3 levels of assist, it dynamically calculates how far you can go. So it says in the lowest level, on a not full battery, 29 miles. It's pretty great. On normal, 26 miles. And on high, that's the most powerful the motor can be, 21 miles. Those are all pretty good ratings for a battery that's like around half full. So that's what I mean. Shimano's very efficient. And then if we go the black button one more time, it gives us all of the range readouts like on the fly, so we can get some idea, and then you can change up or down. I don't know. This isn't quite as useful to me, but it's neat to see everything all at once. Okay, so I'm going to go back to just time. You might be wondering, how do I set the clock? How do I set the time? Well, you hold the up and the down buttons over here for a couple seconds. And look at this, settings. So it says clear, clock, start mode, backlight, beep. For me, this is a big one. I'm going to enter the beep settings. I'm going to turn it off. So much more relaxing. Units, miles or kilometers, language, adjust, auto, and then exit. So I'm going to exit. But look how easy that was. As long as you remember to hold the up and down, you can get to all those settings, you can adjust them, and make this bike your own and really intuitive to ride. I think that's enough talk. Maybe it's time to get this bike out there and go for a little ride on the trail. I'm just going to pedal around. I tend to pedal and test in the highest level of assist so you can hear the motor. Notice that this chain ring up here, it has a guide, so there's plastic shielding on both sides so that the chain's not going to bounce off. That's a problem on some of the cheaper electric bikes out there. They don't go to those extra lengths to really, make the bike like reliable and durable the way that this one does. So start pedaling. You see how responsive that is? Like as soon as I start pedaling, it goes. Pretty much as soon as I stop pedaling, it stops. So here we are, just enjoying the path. There's a big hill up here, so we'll head in that direction. And again, I love those hydraulic disc brakes. They're just so easy to reach and use, really comfortable, because this bike does weigh a little bit more. The one I'm on right now is 44.9 pounds, and the high step we were looking at before, that's 45.5 pounds. So it is a little bit heavier if you go with the high step frame. But you know, these are both reasonable weight. They're heavier than the Nico and the Dual Sport. Those ones have smaller, like narrower tires, but they do have suspension. So those are worth considering if you're okay switching from this cruiser style to something a little bit more active. Now I'm going to switch gears, and this bike does not have shift sensing, so I am going to be kind of careful when I do it so I don't mash. You could probably definitely hear the motor going ray, and that's again because I'm in the highest level of assist and I'm pedaling at a higher RPM. And we had no problem. I mean, you know, looking behind me here, we just came up this big hill and I was filming. I didn't have to stand up. The bike really does a great job. I'm really impressed. I feel like, you know, this is kind of what I would expect from Trek or some of the other leading brands. Just some other thoughts as I've been riding around on this trail. It's relatively smooth, but I am feeling, you know, that the frame, this is stiff. It's aluminum. Aluminum, it's not the most comfortable material to make a bike with, but it is one of the lighter weight, cheaper options. So a lot of companies go with aluminum, but they'll add a suspension fork, or maybe they'll add a carbon or steel fork that kind of, it has some vibration dampening properties. So with this bike, the tires are pumped all the way up because it's a demo bike. And if you're a heavier rider, you kind of need the higher tire pressure so that it doesn't, you know, pop the tube if you hit a sharp angle or whatever. I'm getting technical, but the point is, this bike's kind of set up for anyone. It's not really dialed into me, but it's just too stiff. It's like I'm feeling some of those bumps. The sweatback handlebars help, you know, but I would definitely lower the PSI. I would think about that seat post suspension. And for me personally, the type of rider I am, I would probably get the Dual Sport just because it has suspension and it's a little bit more active. For someone who wants that cruiser, the fun look, the more relaxed body position, this is a great option. I mean, look at this. My head's up straight. I'm not like leaned way over. I can have fun and kind of spot traffic, talk to my friends, easily reach those handlebars, steer very comfortably. That's what this is all about. It just doesn't have the suspension fork and the tires are a little full for me. So that's what I'm talking about, getting some help from your Trek dealer and, you know, making this feel as good as it can. I'm going to go ahead and put the camera on the frame now and give you some up-close shots of that motor in action. I'm going to start out in the lowest level of assist, and then I'm going to slowly work my way up so you can hear the differences. In fact, I'm going to start with no assist so you can hear what that sounds like first. Nice little brake test there at the end. There's all three levels of assist. I could definitely hear the volume of the motor, like the sound increase as I went up in power. But the shifting was really smooth. I wasn't mashing, climbed that little hill, stopped just fine. It's a good system. And one more closing thought here about locking the bikes up. Because they do have quick release on the front and the rear, it's important when you lock it up to kind of go through the frame, the front wheel, and then maybe get one of those long cables to go through the rear wheel so that, you know, no one can take this. The good news is if something happens to the rear wheel, it's using standard bicycle components, so it's not like you have to spend extra special money for the e-bike stuff. All the e-bike components are right here and right here. Coming back to taking in your battery, taking in your display, I also want to call out this awesome quick release that they've got for the seat tube collar. Look how big it is. It's really easy to grab and hold on to. You're not going to break your nails or hurt your fingers quite as much. You're still going to be able to really, you know, get it tight. And for someone who's maybe a little bit larger, you know, I think cruiser bikes tend to be popular for kind of the relaxed. Maybe you're a little older, a little heavier. You want to be able to get that seat tight. You don't want the seat falling or twisting on you. So I really think that's nice. You know, Trek is known for innovating in the bicycle space. They've done a lot of cool stuff with their higher end bikes, but this is just a little minor detail that's upgraded. But the downside is that just like the wheels, it's quick release. So someone could come along, you know, it's late at night, you got your bike locked outside, and they just take your seat just for fun, and then you come back and your bike looks like that. That happens a lot in like college towns and stuff, unfortunately. So I would say, you know, they do have another, it's called like a saddle leash. It's another little cable that you can loop through the saddle rails, and then you can connect that to the bigger cable and your U-lock. So with a U-lock, a longer regular cable, and a saddle leash, you could get this bike totally locked up, and then you just take the other components. Most people I know, they park their bikes, they store them inside, and it's not a problem, and they don't leave bikes like this out overnight. But I wanted to take a minute just to discuss that topic in case you're, you know, new to the space. So, for the full write-up on the Lift Plus and the Lift Plus Lowstep, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Of course, have fun out there, be respectful, and ride safe.